He said the house is not on fire. I think there's sparks in the kitchen. Now, will it spread throughout the entire house? I don't really know yet. But that kitchen is flaming. I don't know if he got a fire extinguisher under the sink or what, but it's very close to the house being completely on fire. Welcome back to the Kenny Beecham podcast. On today's episode, we got to talk about the ending of one of the best first-round Eastern Conference series, maybe of all time. I don't know. I haven't been around that long, but at least as long as I can remember, Knicks versus 76ers gave me everything I could have wanted in the series. I also want to talk about some of the teams that have been eliminated. What's next for those? The exit interviews tell you a lot. The Pelicans, the Suns, the Bucks just got eliminated today. The Heat. What is next for all of these teams? Leave a like, subscribe. Let's get into it. So I'm filming this episode just minutes after the Knicks versus 76ers series has wrapped up. So I don't know what the post-game interview is going to look like for Joel Embiid or Nick Nurse or anybody really, but I just want to talk about the series because it was everything. We got a scramble for a game winner with Dante DiVincenzo. Tyrese Maxey and the 76ers in game number 5 were down by 6 points with 40 seconds to go, 7 points with 40 seconds to go. He brought it all the way back and helped them win an overtime game. And today we saw the battle of the stars for about 3 quarters. I'm going to start off there with the Philadelphia 76ers because today Joel Embiid's final stat line was 39 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists. He fouled out. But boy, just looking at the stat line, watching this game through the first 3 quarters, he was exactly the Joel Embiid you wanted because in game number 5, he put up a stinker. And luckily, Tyrese Maxey turned into Superman / Reggie Miller / Tracy McGrady and helped them win that game. And I wanted to see Joel Embiid go out in game number 6 and showcase why he's one of the most dominant players in basketball. And I do want to say this. I am not a Joel Embiid fan. I'm not a 76er fan. I am very neutral here. I try to be as objective as possible. This fourth quarter, well, not just this fourth quarter. Let's talk about the fourth quarter of game number 5 or game number 4 or game number 3. You get what I'm saying? The fourth quarter for Joel Embiid has been awful. Now, I want to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he only played, 8 games after his meniscus injury before we got to the playoffs. We found out after game number 3 that he has been dealing with Bell's palsy. Hell, every single one of these games, it feels like he left the court to go back to the locker room for whatever reason. He obviously was not 100%. But this is the same story for every single year. Obviously, he cannot control his health. Like, there's only so much he can do, right? He's eating right. Then once upon a time, didn't he drink like a bunch of Shirley Temples a day? Like, he's done everything that you want from your player to maintain their health. And his body just continues to give up on him. Through the first 3 quarters, he was phenomenal. He was dominant. He was everything Joel Embiid usually is. And that fourth quarter came around. And I thought he became so very passive, where he didn't want the ball, where there were times where he would get a post touch, and instead of him facing up or even looking like a threat, he immediately put the ball in his right hand and Michael Jordan looking for somebody else to pass it to, time and time again. I think in this game number 4, the stats have not updated, but if by my own, it has updated. Let me just double check this. In the fourth quarter of this game, Joel Embiid was 2 of 4 with 2 made free throws, 6 total points. 3 of his 6 fouls came in this one. One of them was them intentionally fouling, whatever. But one of those 2 buckets was when the 76ers had the New York Knicks have decided to concede a 2-pointer. They didn't want a 3. So he didn't have to work for that one. Every other time he said, Tyrese, this is for you. And again, Tyrese did not have a phenomenal game. I thought he had a good fourth quarter, but the first 3 quarters was a struggle. But after what he did in game number 5, I mean, I'm giving him a pass. There is no game number 6 if he doesn't do what he does in game number 5. And this is where I want Joel Embiid to take over. In game number 4, Nick Nurse opted to not play or not to pull Joel Embiid the normal 3 minutes, 4 minutes in the beginning of the fourth quarter and let him ride the rest of the game. Because historically, throughout the entirety of Joel Embiid's career, and I guess it's the case for, I would say, majority of superstar players, but I don't know the stats on this. When Joel Embiid was on the floor, his team was good. His team was winning the point differential. Anytime this man went to the bench, it tanked in the minus, right? So Nick Nurse is thinking, man, this game number 4 is as important as any game. We do not want to go down 3-1. So let's just think about the statistics and say when Joel Embiid is on the floor, we're just a better team. But because he didn't get that 3 to 4 minute break at the beginning of the fourth quarter, he didn't do anything in the fourth. Didn't do anything. He was gassed. He was walking up the court. He wasn't even contesting shots like he normally would. And in this one, he had to opt to go back to the normal routine where Joel Embiid played 9 minutes in the fourth quarter versus the 12 that he played in game number 4. And you would have hoped that that would have been enough to get him the juices that was necessary for him to help his team go over the top. And it was not. I don't know. Okay, so this team has what, 64, 60 something, $56 million in cap space. 64 is actually the Detroit Pistons. And they're going to try to use it. Obviously, this team needs some more help. It can't just be Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid for 3 quarters. You know who's next on the hit list? Tobias Harris. He did it again. Last episode, we talked about how non-existent Tobias Harris had been in this series. Today's stat line. Are you ready for this? I know you watch this game, so you know the stat line. I'm sure if I go into Twitter right now, this is one of the main talking points after you talk about Joel Embiid giving a stinker in the fourth quarter. 29 points or 29 minutes. 0 points. 0. 0 for 2 from the field. I don't even remember his first shot, but the second shot was a pull-up midi jump shot late in the fourth quarter. 0 for 2. The $30+ million man. 0 for 2 in a closeout game. I just don't know what else to say. He was a -10 in a game where his team lost by 3. I just lost. And so is he. And I made a tweet after game number 3, I want to say. And it was the thing said, has anybody lost more money this offseason than Buddy Hield? Buddy Hield got traded to the Philadelphia 76ers to just be one of those guys that he's off the books at the end of the season, but maybe he can give you enough of an off the bench, or in my mind, I thought he was actually going to be starting for the second half of the season. Could he give you a little bit of off that bench or starting as one of the best 3-point shooters of all time, right? And he opened up his 76er tenure really good. He had like a 20-something point double-double. He had like 10 assists. Like Buddy Hield is hitting the A button. Buddy Hield's passing the ball. And then it slowly slowed down. And in my mind, I was like, oh, don't worry. When Joel Embiid comes back, it'll all work a little bit better because, I mean, Joel Embiid just alleviates all the pressure on pretty much everybody on the team. Well, through the first couple games of this series, Nick Nurse had to come to the realization that Buddy Hield was unplayable. He was unplayable. Till tonight, where he had 20 points in 21 minutes. He had big shot after big shot. And I know we're going to talk about the last shot that he attempted with 2.7 seconds left. And yeah, he had more time to get up a better shot than that. But he had a game that I thought if they won that game and potentially won a game 7, remember the random 21 minutes from Buddy Hield. But back to the original tweet. Has anybody lost more money than Buddy Hield? I want to say Tobias Harris has. But then again, the Detroit Pistons have $64 million in cap, and I don't know who else would really consider going there. So I think Tobias Harris is going to walk into this offseason and still make a shit ton of money, regardless of the fact that he has been awful. Joel Embiid went down with his injury a few months back, and in your mind, you would think, okay, there's more shot attempts, there's more points to be had for a guy like Tobias Harris. Why do his numbers go down across the board? It makes no sense. And now Joel Embiid comes back for the playoff run, and you have a game 6 where you give us 0 points. 0. And the problem is they didn't have another wing guy on the team to replace those minutes, right? Nicholas Batum gave them 16 points. Again, Nicholas Batum averaged like 2 points per game in the regular season. He had the big playing game. We had 20-something, and then now he gave them 16. So you got 20 from Buddy Hield, who was unplayable the last 2 games. You got 16 from Nicholas Batum, who only averaged 2-some points per game. This is a game you should win. But Toby gave you 0, and Joel Embiid was a 0 in the fourth quarter. And because of that, you lose. Kelly Oubre had a good game. He had a couple things down the stretch I didn't love. But for the most part, I think he had a great series. He guarded Jalen Brunson as good as somebody could, given the circumstances. I mean, through the first 2 games of the series, I'm on First Take, and Stephen A is asking me, should we be worried about Jalen Brunson? Because that's how Kelly Oubre, Nicholas Batum, and all these guys were defending him so well. I think he's going to get paid. I don't know what pay really is for Kelly Oubre because he's had a couple decent-sized contracts in his career, and he came here on the bet on myself. I mean, he was one of the last people to sign a free agency this year, so that's maybe a good sign. But I don't know what happens next other than them trying to go out and get some guys. Paul George is like the top free agent name outside of LeBron who might opt out, and then it's like DeMar DeRozan. This is not one of the free agency class, so you think that we have a max spot, so we're going to go out there and get a guy. Now, free agency for the 76ers could be a trade. They have 2 tradable first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. Neither of them are like some good first-rounders, but they're first-rounders nonetheless. I don't know what star player will be available, but what scares me is that they're gonna sign somebody, right? It could be Paul George, it could be DeMar, it could be Klay Thompson, it could be somebody of that caliber, a good name, right? To just be that third guy that can provide more than 0 points in 29 minutes. But this is a story that we've seen time and time again with the 76ers / Joel Embiid. There are certain teams across basketball that we keep saying to ourselves, well, if they could only get healthy. Joel Embiid, throughout the last 4 playoff runs, in my mind, I think if he can only stay healthy. And he hasn't. Feel the same way about the Clippers. They can only stay healthy. Kawhi's not playing for the rest of the series. Same thing about the Pelicans. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson have played 0 playoff minutes together if they can only get healthy. Eventually, you have to throw that out the back pocket and just say, hey, we tried. In the Joel Embiid era, we've seen him team up with Ben Simmons. We've seen them eventually trade for Jimmy Butler, and then they picked Tobias Harris over him. And then they traded for James Harden. Like, they've been very good about attempting things. Some teams out there are just very okay with not doing anything. At least the 76ers can say that we have tried so many different versions of a team built around Joel Embiid. And there are times where the team is built well. And then he gets injured. So in my mind, next year could be potentially the last year of the process. If we sign Paul George, we have another phenomenal regular season, because I want to remind you, before Joel Embiid went down with this injury, the Philadelphia 76ers were one of the top 3 seeds in basketball, right? We have another phenomenal regular season, and then we get down to game number 81, and Joel Embiid is hurt. Or we get to game number 2 of the first round of the playoffs, and Joel Embiid walks off the court to go to the back room. Can we say that we're going to run it back again after year after year after year of doing this? I don't know how you can. Right? Joel Embiid is one of the best players in basketball. You ain't seen the conference finals. Look at every other player that we say best player in basketball. Matter of fact, top NBA players. I'm just Googling top NBA players. No conference finals appearance, right? The best player in basketball we know is Nikola Jokic. Luka Doncic has a conference finals appearance. He was super young. It was 3 years ago at this point? But at least he has one. Giannis has the championship. Shea does not. But this is Shea's first playoff run as the guy, and he has a series coming up very, very soon. Joel Embiid is here at number 5, and I'm looking at the Ringers top 100. I ain't saying I agree with the ranking, but I'm just giving you the guys. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, champion. Jason Tatum, been to the finals. Steph Curry, obviously, champion. Kevin Durant, champion. Anthony Davis, champion. Devin Booker, champion appearance. How far do I have to go? Jalen Brunson is at 13. He doesn't have one. Or does he? Jalen Brunson was on that team that went to the conference finals, wasn't he? Maybe I'm bugging. Maybe that's young Jason Tatum or Jalen Brunson. Either way, I don't remember. Anthony Edwards got none. But this is his, second playoff run ever. Jimmy Butler. I mean, the list goes on. And then we start to get to like Wembanyama and Tyrese Halliburton, who's playing his first playoff minutes ever. But every other guy that we've talked about has had a conference finals appearance. And Joel Embiid right now is going into his 30-year-old year. His body is broken down for the last 4 of these years. He's a 7-foot big. Like, what's the track record of a 7-footer going to the year number, the 30-year-old year? Now, what's the track record of a 7-footer going to the 30-year-old year that's also had 7 knee surgery? A bunch of knee surgeries, a bunch of this and a bunch of that. It's not a good track record. And I want to see Joel Embiid get that monkey off his back. And I'm not even a fan. But if I'm the 76ers and I see this young fella in Tyrese Maxey and how great he is, and there's objectively going to be teams out there interested in Joel Embiid regardless of the injury history, I just have to think to myself, at what point do we just shift it? That's all. Now, let's talk about the team that won the series. Because this is the Enjoy Basketball Network, but I got to talk some shit sometimes, all right? The New York Knicks gave us a game where you knew, this is Tom Thibodeau way, where he knew that the momentum has shifted in the series, right? Specifically after game number 5, where Tyrese Maxey came out and just went supernova. He did not want it to go to game 7. Obviously that's the obvious thing. You don't want your team to lose a basketball game, but the way he coached his game, where all of his guys played pretty much all the minutes. There's at one point, I think we were into the 4th quarter until we saw one of the bench players on the Knicks get a bucket. Miles McBride hit a big 3, and I think that Mitchell Robinson had a layup at one point. That was it. Dante DiVincenzo had been a guy that had Miles McBride take his minutes in the fourth quarter over a few games in this series. Tonight, he was great, 23 points, 7 assists. And the thing that they dominated the entire series on was on that offensive glass. You saw it to start off the game, and eventually you had a run, right? Second quarter, Buddy Hield had 17 points. That was the run that they needed for the 76 to get back in this game. But the entirety of this series, the Knicks were punching them in the mouth. And it's no surprise because we saw them do the exact same thing to the Cavaliers last year in the playoffs. But you would just think with the 76ers being a more experienced team than that Cavs team, that they'd be more equipped, more prepared for a punching in the mouth, where they were not. Because in this game, Mitch Robb has 6 offensive rebounds. Josh Hart is just a rebounding machine, and he closed out this series. We're going to talk about Josh Hart in a second. Isaiah Hartenstein, 5 offensive rebounds. This team is just going to go after it, and they're never going to leave a loose ball left. They're never going to let anything happen. One thing, and I don't have high leverage basketball experience, right? So you know what I'm saying? It's not like this is a college coach that told me this. But one of my coaches, and I don't even know if it's good advice, but one of our coaches when we were younger, when it came to the rebounding drills, he used to say, I don't want the ball to touch the floor, right? If the ball touches the floor, and we're talking about as a defensive team, like defensive rebounding team, right? You don't want the ball to touch the floor because that opens up the opportunity for the offensive team to just go in and get it. So we would have drills where we just go up and hit each other hard in the air. And luckily I was a guard, so I ain't have to be down there with the little fellas. It felt like time and time again, that's how the Knicks played the game. Where like if the ball hit the floor on a rebound, they were the one that picked it up. Like vertically, I mean, Josh Hart was up there a bunch. But anytime, I don't got no stats. Maybe I should go back and look at the offensive rebounds that they got. It felt as though when the ball hit the floor first, they were there. And Tom Thibodeau coached his ass off. I honestly think that Nick Nurse coached his ass off too. But Tom Thibodeau coached his ass off. And then in the last play of the game, you knew that the obvious thing when you rewatch that is they didn't want Jalen Brunson to beat them. It's the same thing that they ran for the first 2 games of the series, and eventually Nick Nurse went away from it because Josh Hart had 3 straight games in this series where he had 4 threes. I want to remind you that before the playoffs started, Josh Hart hadn't hit 4 threes in the game since January. So it was an out-of-body experience for him to hit this many threes, and then today he hit 3. And with the last, when the game is on the line, they say, hey, anybody but Jalen Brunson. Actually, anybody but Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo, where when they swung it to Josh Hart, you saw Tyrese Maxey kind of jump at Josh Hart just a little bit to throw him off his game, but ultimately his goal was to stick to Dante. And if Josh Hart hits this shot, we go home, but at least we can say we gave it to a 30% three-point shooter. In this series, Josh Hart was amazing. He had the one game after they changed the scheme, right? After the first 2 games, Nick Nurse and company decided, okay, we're neutralizing Jalen Brunson, but the others are just playing out of this world. And now we're already down 2-0. So we can't have another Josh Hart game. We can't have another Dante DiVincenzo game. We need to kind of not play it straight up, but we got to be honest about these things. And then eventually they neutralized Josh Hart from a scoring perspective, but I also opened up the game for Jalen Brunson to do what he wanted to do. And in this one, Josh Hart was all over the place. He hit the biggest 3. And I mean, he was great. OG Anunoby was great everywhere, offensive, defensive side of the ball. I mean, another underrated thing about this series was which game was this? Game number 4, I want to say. Is that the game when Isaiah Hartenstein had 5 fouls in the third quarter? I think it was. And then Mitch Robb didn't play in this one. So it was like Precious Achiuwa had to check in for Isaiah Hartenstein. And you would just think that Precious Achiuwa being a big on the team, his assignment would be to guard Joel Embiid, where it wasn't. It was OG Anunoby's assignment. Now Precious Achiuwa came over to help a ton. Like they weren't sending individual bodies to Joel Embiid. You would be an idiot to do that, especially with a small ball lineup. But a lot of that is OG Anunoby and then Precious Achiuwa coming in and digging at the ball time and time again. Where I don't, again, talk about Joel Embiid's fourth quarters. I don't think he scored in that fourth quarter. Tonight, he was great. He had some timely shots. He had the big poster dunk. And I can't wait to see exactly what the next series looks like for them. They got the Pacers, who also won their game. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the one thing I'm thinking about, and I'm going to do an entire preview of this. I actually want to go back and watch some of their games because I don't have any memories of these 2 teams playing against each other from this season. So I want to go back and watch some of this. And hopefully they didn't play all their games in November or something crazy like that, because that happens in the NBA occasionally. But the idea of crashing the glass so very heavily worked against the 76ers because other than Tyrese Maxey, this is a slow-paced team. The Pacers will make you pay if you crash that glass and you don't get an offensive board. So there's one thing I'm looking for. And I got to go back to watch the footage because maybe that's not even the reality of the thing, but I got to go back and watch it. If you go to FanDuel Sportsbook, the odds are already up. of the series. The Knicks are a minus 265 favorite to win it. And I thought that was a bit high for the New York Knicks. Like I do favor the Knicks. Do not get me wrong. I do favor the Knicks in this series, but I do think the Pacers showed me a little bit in their last series. Now, granted, there was no Damian Lillard for a few of the games and no Giannis for the entirety of the series. That team has some fight. They got a good bench. They got some hoopers over there. So I don't know if the Knicks should be that heavily favorite, but that's where they are right now. And I think I would ride with the Knicks, but again, I'll give an official prediction down the line. The NBA playoffs have tipped off, but it's not too late for you to get in on the action with FanDuel. FanDuel is the only U.S. sportsbook with over 5 million five-star reviews. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. That's $150 to use on same-game parlays, live bets, championship futures, and many more things. There's no better place to bet on all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/Kenny to get started. FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. I kind of want to talk about some of the teams that have been eliminated. Starting off with the New Orleans Pelicans, I think that the end of the season interviews, the exit interviews are some of the most telling things every single season, where a lot of the times a general manager or a coach will go out there and they'll say some stuff, and then you look back on it a month later and be like, oh yeah, he kind of warned us of this. And the first one comes from the Pelicans, and it was a David Griffin over there, and this was his quote: "In the past, we erred on the side of continuity. We needed to see this group healthy. I think we've seen enough. This will not be a summer of complacency. It's time to get better." Whew. I'm excited about this. As a nerd that loves when players jump around teams, and that's one of the reasons why the NBA is my baby and not the NFL or the MLB or some of these other major sports, because I love to see players on new teams and see trades. Team building in general is just something I fell in love with when I was a kid. So to see the Pelicans say this is refreshing in a way, because as I mentioned earlier, there are certain teams that are just okay with saying like, we had the injury bug this season. Let's see what it would look like next season. And over the last couple of years, they've been a play-in team. They've got a few playoff appearances under their belt, but they continuously lose. And part of that is Zion not being healthy when it matters the most. And then in this one, Lou Dort had Brandon Ingram in the torture chamber, but also Brandon Ingram only played one game before the playoffs started. So they also just had a bunch of injuries. But I thought on paper, even this is a team that won 49 games this season. So objectively a really good team. Somehow they end up top 10 in offense and top 10 in defense. But I don't think that the pieces work very well together. I mean, obviously the wins say otherwise. The numbers say otherwise. But when you just think about the team, you watch the team specifically, when you get down to the nitty gritty, the fourth quarter, the clutch time, it's just a team that hasn't been well constructed. The one thing that they can benefit on is that they have one of the deepest teams in basketball, from Jose Alvarado to Dyson Daniels to Trey Murphy III, to Larry Nance Jr. These are all very, very quality. I mean, even Najee Marshall, who doesn't play a ton, those are 5 quality players off your bench. And that's why when Zion misses some time, they can, for the most part, be okay. Brandon Ingram missed some time. They, for the most part, can be okay. Now, those dudes can't fill the shoes of the star players, but they have that depth. It'd have been very easy for them to say, hey, Zion and Brandon Ingram, we ain't seen him in the playoff series just yet. I think when he says this, they're not getting complacent, that it's time to get better. The only way in my mind you get better is you have to switch up or make a decision between Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson and try to optimize that asset. I think they're going to steer on Zion Williamson because he's a stud. He's a star. If he can stay goddamn healthy. You saw that in the playing game. We had 40 points on LeBron James and Anthony Davis's head. He's that. I can understand why people be hesitant of that because, again, he cannot stay healthy. But Trey Murphy III has been so good. Y'all know how high I am on Trey, that I think that he has earned himself a starting spot. And if you keep Zion and Brandon Ingram together, that starting spot will never materialize. You're not taking Herb Jones out of the lineup for that. You can't take CJ out of the lineup for that unless you go completely all in on point Zion, which I personally am not completely against. But I do think it is time because I don't think these two dudes mesh well together. The on-off stats say that they're good. Like when Brandon Ingram and Zion are together, I think they're a plus 5.59 on the court. When all three of their players together, including CJ, Brandon, and Zion, they're negative. Like I don't know of a big three that's negative that's a playoff team. You know what I'm saying? So they have to make some decisions. I think Jonas Valanciunas is probably not back on his roster. I think guys like Val and guys like Nurkic, as we continue to see the game evolve, are going to become more obsolete. Just because you can't really play them against some of the smaller lineups, and when the team goes small, they're not punishing them enough. Like the OKC Thunder, they didn't play small, but they're a smaller team, right? Chet is a $145 soaking wet, and Val had some good quarters. He had 11 points to start a game once upon a time, but guess what he did? He gave up 12 because he was letting Chet shoot 3-pointers and stuff. Like, he's just not the archetype of a center that exists in basketball and is effective in basketball. Unless you are a hub, one of the guys that the offense is running through, that archetype does not work anymore. So Val probably has to go, and you probably want to bring in a guy that can hit some jump shots with some consistency, or maybe just a straight up rim protector. I don't know. I like the idea of Claxton there a little bit. I don't know how they get there. Again, I'm just spitballing, but I don't know how to get there, but it is refreshing to see their front office say, hey, we will not bring the same roster back. We will make some changes. Now, hopefully those changes are right. You know, every change you do is not going to be a good one. So we'll see. Let's go to the Suns, because the Suns one was crazy, where James Jones, the guy that's orchestrated this team over the last 5 years or so, came to the podium of his exit interview and he said, hey, nobody in Kevin Durant's career so far has been able to optimize around him. We think that we're in the best position. This is not verbatim. We believe that we're in the best position to put Kevin in the best position. Huh? What? No team's been able to optimize him. Did you not see the 17 Warriors? Now, yeah, that's the greatest constructed team of all time. But, like, you can't say no team has optimized him when he did that. That was the perfect 2 seasons for him. Even the year where they get to the conference finals and lose to the eventual Golden State Warriors, the team he would sign to. They were up 3-1 or whatever, but that team optimized Kevin Durant. Yeah, they lost 3 games in a row to end that series, but, like, that was a very great team. Even his championship team, like, they were all super young. I mean, his MVP team, they were super young, but they got the most out of Kevin. So for you to come to the podium and say nobody's been able to do it, if I'm Kevin, I'm like, the hell? I just gave you 28 points per game on some of the best efficiency in my life, and you saying that I'm not optimized yet? What more can I do? Just confuse him. And you know who's next up to the podium? Matt Ishbia, the guy that made everything happen, the guy that traded Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, the guy that traded away Jake Crowder, the guy that traded away all the first-round picks for the next 5 years. This is his exact quote. Ask the other 29 GMs, 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team, our draft picks, and everything. The house is not on fire. We're in a great position. It's not hard to fix. They also said that their starting lineup is coming back. So I talk about how Yusuf Nurkic might be obsolete in the current basketball. Well, he's not. He's starting next season. Same thing with Grayson Allen. If you ask the 29 GMs, 26 of them will switch teams with him. So obviously that's delusion. But I was like, okay, what teams are he thinking about, the ones that would not switch positions with him? I know that he definitely don't think that the Denver Nuggets would want to switch positions with him. I definitely don't think he thinks that the Boston Celtics would want to switch positions with him. So who's that third team? Is it the OKC Thunder, who have 17 first-round picks plus the number 1 seed this year and going into the second-round matchup? Is it the team that just beat you? The team just beat you, swept you. One of those 2 teams he thinks in his mind would switch rosters with him. Think about that. Do you think the Knicks are switching rosters with him? Like, it's delusion. It's delusion. I bet very good money that the San Antonio Spurs would not switch positions with them. If you trade a 15 for 15 and all the draft picks, the Spurs are like, nah, that's not enough for Wemby. He thinks that there's only 3 teams in basketball that wouldn't trade everything to be a team that have a literal untradeable contract and no first-round draft picks until 2031. Does he mean that those teams would take that and then trade Devin to recoup some draft capital and trade Kevin to recoup some draft capital? I don't know if the house is on. He said the house is not on fire. I think the sparks in the kitchen. Now, will it spread throughout the entire house? I don't really know yet. But that kitchen is flaming. I don't know if he got a fire extinguisher under the sink or what, but it's very close to the house being completely on fire. But you know what's the reason that scares me so much is because this is the guy that's going to be in charge of the team for the next foreseeable future. He's not leaving anytime soon. He just got there a season and a half ago. So if he don't think that the house is on fire, if he says we're in a great position, I don't know how let me go back to this top list, right? Devin Booker is the 11th best player in basketball, according to the Ringer. Kevin Durant's the 9th best player in basketball. We have 2 of the top 11 players in basketball, and we didn't win a single playoff game this year. We're in a great position. We're in a great position. We have an untradeable contract. Don't worry, we're in a great position. This is not hard to fix. We'll see. We'll see. It's not hard to fix. We'll see. Because I don't know what else you could do if you have no tradable first-round picks, buddy. And you just told us that the starting lineup's coming back. So what are we moving? How are we getting better? You told us the starting lineup is coming back. I don't know. Let's talk about the Miami Heat, who just got dominated in every game except for the one that hit 23 threes. And it's such a hard team to really look at, honestly. For most of my life, the Miami Heat have been this pillar of consistency. From the Wade years to, let's forget about the non-Wade years. From the Wade years and then the next regime, they've only had a few seasons where they did not make the playoffs. They're always a team that's competing. They're so well coached. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in basketball. I don't know what happens next. I saw Dan Le Batard, a guy that I really respect in this space, say that the Celtics just closed the Jimmy Butler era. I don't think I believe that myself. I understand his talking points. I just don't think I agree. And the reason I don't agree is when Jimmy Butler's up for an extension this season, I don't know if I would give that if I'm Pat Riley. I think I would probably wait. And maybe that rubs Jimmy the wrong way, whatever. But I still think there's one move to be done. And I've said this over the last couple of seasons for the Miami Heat. Hell, Tyler Herro's been in trade rumors since he signed his contract. Let's be real. I think there's still another trade to be done. I think this Heat team is okay. I know they lost in 5. I think this Heat team is okay. Obviously, there was no Terry Rozier. There was no Duncan Robinson. Jaime Jaquez was the last game of the season. No Jimmy Butler. For the last 2 seasons, this is a team that lost the most amount of games to injury, right? There's a team that just was in the NBA Finals last year, and a year before that, they were the 1 seed. So I think that the team is decently built on the foundation. But there's still something missing. And I do believe that Tyler Herro might be the odd man out ultimately. Like, I don't know how they go into this offseason after the last 2 years of not trading Tyler Herro and say that we're not doing it again. Like, I don't know who's even available, first of all. If the Cavs lose this series, maybe Donovan Mitchell becomes available, somebody. But I just feel like there's something else to be done. I actually saw on First Take this morning, Udonis Haslem said something that I said last year in the playoffs, moving Bam Adebayo to the 4. I've been saying it. I want it. I want to at least see it. I want to see some minutes of Bam Adebayo at the 4 position. Now, I don't know who that guy is to come in and take that 5 position from him. But sometimes I feel like the Heat just run so small because Bam is 6'8", 6'9". He's the most versatile defender in basketball to me. So that's why I'm not concerned about him moving over to the 4 position, because he can guard 1 through 5 and switches. I hate when people say somebody can guard 1 through 5, but they can't do it for a full game. I don't know if I trust Bam to play a full game, a full series of him guarding a good one, a really good one. He can definitely hold his own. Don't get me wrong. But he can guard many, many positions. And we've seen his offensive game develop a little bit more, and he's actually taken some 3-point shots toward the end of the season. I think that if you told him, Bam, we're going to bring a big next alongside you, we need you to focus on that jump shot a little bit more, I think he would. I think he has a good enough touch to be able to run the 4 position. So if we bring in somebody to run the 4, again, I don't know who that is. I don't even think it has to be necessarily just an amazing guy that can run the 4. I kind of just want somebody that can be a rim protector and let Bam kind of do similarly to what Giannis did his DPOY season, where Giannis was the best free safety in all of basketball. I think Bam Adebayo has the potential to do that, right? So just bringing another center, don't ask me who, but bringing another guy to let Bam have the opportunity to run some 4. Not full time. You're still going to have a lot of lineups and a lot of minutes of Bam running the 5, but just letting him run some 4. I would love to see what their backcourt, like, I like the idea, and I don't have the numbers to prove if this is a good lineup or not, but in my mind, the idea of a starting 5 of Rozier, who, it just sucks that he had his injury right before the playoffs and everything. Rozier, Robinson, Butler, Bam, center to be named. I feel good about that, right? Or maybe it's something different. Maybe it's Tyler Herro getting traded for another wing, and now Duncan Robinson is just coming off the bench again. I don't really know. But I'm not ready to close the door on the Miami Heat just yet. I think it's premature. Now, if next year, if they don't do something this offseason, Pat Riley sleep at the wheel again, and they don't do something this offseason, and they continue to be the 8th seed, like, you cannot go through the plan every year. It is exhausting. You did it once, and you were the best playing team of all time, but you can't do it time and time again. The last team I want to talk about today when it comes to elimination, and I know there's some more series to potentially talk about, but I'm going to hold off on that for the next episode because tomorrow, or I guess today as you're watching this, it could be the end of the Cavs versus Magic / Clippers versus Nuggets or Mavericks. The Bucks got eliminated today to the Pacers. And again, the Pacers played a great game. I said this in the other podcast. I was giving superlatives and kind of in like a jokey way, but I did. It was a grain of truth in there. The most feared man off the bench in basketball is not Malik Monk. It's not Naz Reid. It's TJ McConnell. And today he had 20. Obi Toppin had 21. Bench production. I think that one point they showed a graphic that the bench production was like 41-6 for the Bucks. And I thought that in game number 5, the Bucks put up a really good fight without Dame and without Giannis. And I was like, okay, this is really good. And then tonight, Dame comes back. He puts up 28 and everything, but they get ran off the court for the most part. And anytime it felt like Pacers brand of basketball was being played, you just knew that the Bucks had no chance, and they just really didn't. They're the oldest team in basketball. They cannot run with Tyrese. They cannot run with Aaron E. Smith and Obi Toppin catching lobs and all of this stuff. So shout out to the Pacers, first playoff win in forever. Like, this is why I want to say, Pacers fans, don't let nobody on Instagram, on Twitter, and all these places take away your win, your series win, because this is important. This is huge. It don't matter if the other team dealt with a ton of injuries. A win is a win. You can only play the team that's in front of you. You know what I'm saying? So enjoy the next round versus the Knicks. And again, I'm going to do some previews on that. But I do want to talk about the Bucks and their future because I don't think this is a failure of a season. I saw a tweet that was like, which was a big of a failure? This Bucks season versus the Suns season. I don't even think they're on the same level. I don't think it's close, if I'm being honest with you. Well, because Giannis didn't play a single game in this series. The third best player in basketball did not play a single second of this series. I can't call this a failure. I think that if Giannis plays this series, no disrespect, Pacers fan, I'm not taking this away from you. I think that the Pacers lose this series if Giannis plays. We'll never really know. I know in the regular season, the Pacers had their number. We'll never really know. I can't look at this and say this is a failure of a season. Now, there are a lot of things in this season that I do not like. Do not get me wrong. But I don't think this is oh my God, hit the panic button. What Matt Ishbia say? The house is not on fire. I don't think the house is on fire in Milwaukee either. Unless Giannis walks to the front office and say, hey, I want to be traded. The house is not on fire. I thought Chris Middleton was great in this series. The only thing that scares me about the Bucks and their potential to come back next season, because for the most part, I'm assuming they're going to come back, but they are not afraid. They showed us last year, they're not afraid of trading one of their fan favorites if that means they can upgrade their roster. The thing that scares me is this team is getting older and older every year. The last 2 years, their playoff has been stunted, right? First round exits. Last 2 years. Dame is 33. Middleton's 32. Giannis is 29. He's in the ripe age of 29. Brook Lopez is 36 years old. That's 4 of their 5 starters. That is old, man. And every time you have a season that doesn't end the way you want it to end, that is a lost season. Again, not a failure of a season, but a lost season in the grand scheme of your careers. Chris Middleton, Dame, Brook Lopez, even not Giannis. Not on Giannis. But these guys may not be the same players they were this year. And it's not like Chris Middleton was this amazing player this year, at least until we got to the playoffs. But every single year you tack up to your career, it's just progression is not linear and regression is not linear either. But Father Time don't lose no battles, man. He just don't. So you bring back this roster, this core, and it's just old. And you lost to a team, again, with no Giannis, but you lost to a young team that just plays this fast brand of basketball. I just don't love the idea of how old they are. That's all. That's all. What's the oldest NBA Finals team? Oldest, let's do some Googles on the fly. Oldest NBA team to win a championship. The 97-98 Bulls had an average age of 32 and some change. And that's weighted age. That's just like the people that played real minutes. Like Ajax. Ajax is not changing the average weighted age because he plays a little bit, but he doesn't play enough. This is from a website that I can't pronounce. So I was going to give it a shout out, but I can't. The youngest team is the 77 Portland Trailblazers. Okay. And of our lifetime, the youngest team is the 2015 Warriors. And of our lifetime, the oldest team is the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. But if I'm doing some math right here, 33 for Dame, 32 for Middleton, 29 for Giannis, 36 for Brook. that weighted age is higher than the 98 Bulls. It's not impossible. Don't get me wrong, it's not impossible. But it just scares me a little bit. So we'll see what John Horst and them are drawing up. They've been a very progressive team trying to make the decisions earlier rather than later. I don't know what those decisions are, because even the last couple games of the series, Brook Lopez looked great. You know, he decided to go back to New Jersey Nets Brook, or I guess a little bit of both. Brook Lopez from Brooklyn, where it's like back to the basket. I'm gonna hit 0 threes, but I'm gonna score 20 points. And this guy had a back surgery 2 years ago. I thought he'll never look the same, and here he is looking good again. So I don't think it's a failure of a season at all. If I'm ranking it 1 through 10, it's probably like a 4, a 3, maybe a 3. A 3 is a failure. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think about the playoffs so far. We'll be back on Sunday night, and by that time, I think no matter what, every single series would be wrapped up. Yes, Saturday, we got game 1 of Minnesota versus All right, so next time we talk, we'll know every single matchup, and we'll do some previews. I'll talk to y'all there. Peace.